All right, so let's jump straight into it. Question 1. The circumference of a circle is 16 pi centimeters. In this question, they're asking you to find the radius of this particular circle. So I want to point out, obviously the radius and the diameter is not the same. The diameter is actually twice the radius. And the formula for the circumference of a circle, which is what this question is talking about, is different to the formula for the area of a circle. So circumference is equal to 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by radius, or 2 pi r. I'm using the symbol pi for pi because this is notepad and it doesn't allow me to put the actual symbol for pi. Now, there are actually two formulas for the circumference. Circumference, like I just said, is 2 pi r. But remember, the diameter is twice the radius. So if I take 2 and multiply by r, 2 by r is the diameter. So another formula for circumference is pi multiplied by diameter. So this formula or this formula will give you the same answer for the circumference. Now, I'm going to be using the first formula, so I'm going to delete this here. So circumference is 2 by pi by r. In this particular question, they gave you the circumference of the circle. So the circumference, I have replaced it with 16 pi. Now 16 pi really means 16 multiplied by pi. The multiplication is understood, right? So if you want me to put it in, it's not a problem. So 16 multiplied by pi. So this was given by the examiner. So circumference is 16 pi. The 2 is here, the pi is here, and the radius is what they're asking us to find. So if we're trying to find for the radius or solve for the radius, we're trying to get r on one side and everybody else on the other side. In other words, we're transposing to find the radius. So you will notice that the 2 and the pi are being multiplied to the radius. And if you recall, when you throw across a multiply, you get a divide. So in the next line over here, you will notice the 2 pi, I threw it across and it became a divide. So the 2 pi went underneath. The pi will cancel out with this pi, leaving you with 16 divided by 2. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. So the radius of this particular circle is 8, which means our answer is, not C. Our answer will be D. So the first answer is D. The radius is 8. All right, guys. So that was question 1. Let's move on to question 2. All right, guys. Now, I know usually I teach on a whiteboard, but unfortunately, due to certain circumstances, this will be the new format I'll be teaching in maths, where I use Notepad and Microsoft Word on left and right of each other. All right. Question 2. This is a y equals mx plus c question, if I'm not mistaken. There's a line, y equals to 2x minus 1. And they say it cuts the x-axis at P. And they want to know what are the coordinates of P. Well, let's go through some brief revision. When a line cuts the y-axis, the x-coordinate is automatically 0. However, when a line cuts the x-axis instead, the y-coordinate is 0. Now, this question here is talking about the line cutting the x-axis. So that means we will be paying attention to this piece of information. So when it cuts the x-axis, like I just said, the y-coordinate itself will be 0. So remember, this was the equation of the line the examiner gave us, y equals to 2x minus 1. So what we need to do is replace y with 0. Because when it cuts the x-axis, the y-coordinate is automatically 0. So what I did is I replaced the y-coordinate with 0, and all I'm going to do now is solve for x. Now, to solve for x, we just simply throw across the minus 1, we will get positive 1, and the 2 is a secret multiply, so when you throw across a multiply, you will get a divide. So if you solve for x, you will get a half. Now they ask us for the coordinates of P. remember when you're stating the coordinates of a point, you need to put the x first, which is a half, and the y second, and they're separated by a comma and they go in brackets, right? Remember, how did we get this 0? The y coordinate is automatically 0 because this particular line is cutting the x-axis, right? So the answer for this one would be, it looks like the answer is B, right? Question 2 is B. Question 3. All right. In this question, they're asking us to find the size of angle x. Now, you will notice over here that it have these straight lines. Those straight lines means those 3 lines have the same length. To do this question properly, you just have to remember only a couple things. That all the angles inside a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. And in an isosceles triangle like this one here, let me zoom in here a little bit. This length and this length is the same. So if you pay attention to this triangle, this is an isosceles triangle. But there's another isosceles triangle here because this length and this length is the same. So you have another isosceles triangle. I actually prepared a graphic for this one. So let's see if I can find it quickly for you guys. All right, this is it here. Now, I color coded it, right? This here is one isosceles triangle. And the yellow one is also another isosceles triangle. So remember, the aim of the question is to find x. So in an isosceles triangle, it's kind of hard to see, but if I rotate this, it means that this angle and this angle is supposed to be the same. So if here's 35, that means, over here is also 35 because it's an isosceles triangle. Now, if you pay attention to the pink triangle, all 3 angles, 1, 2, and 3, must add up to 180. So 35 plus 35 is 70. 70 minus from 180 is 110. So that means this angle over here, let me just make it look neater there, is 110. But from here, all the way to here, that's a straight line. Remember, all a straight line, the total amount of angles add up to 180. So if here's 110, then over here has to be 70 degrees because 110 plus the 70, which gives you the straight line, adds up to 180 degrees. But you're asking us to find angle x. Now look at this. If I take this and I move it out here, let me just delete this here and this 35 here. Remember, this line here and this line here means that this length and this length is the same. So this is an isosceles triangle. So if I rotate it like this, if this and this is the same length, then this angle and this angle, angle x, must be the same exact size because it's an isosceles triangle. So that means x is also 70 degrees. Let me just go back here. All right. So knowing here is 70, this length and this length is the same. So if here is 70, that means x is also 70. All right, so let's see the answer. We can choose the correct answer for this one. The answer for this one will be B because x is 70 degrees. Great, moving on. Next question. Question 4. All right, let me just load it up here. Cube A has a side of 2 centimeters and cube B has a side of 4 centimeters. The one that wants you to divide the volume of B by the volume of A. This is going to be super easy. The volume of a cube is side by side by side. So the volume, side multiplied by side multiplied by side is the same thing as side to the power 3. This here is a symbol for power, right? Remember, I'm using Notepad. So when you see the upside down V, that means something to the power, in this case, 3, or side cube. So let's work out the volume of cube A. Remember, cube A has a a side of length 2 centimeters. So it's 2 by 2 by 2. So remember, don't fall for this trick. 2 by 2 by 2 is not 6. 2 by 2 is 4. 4 by 2 is 8. Or 2 to the power 3 is 8. The volume of B, remember B has a side of 4 centimeters. So it's 4 by 4 by 4. 4 by 4 is 16. 16 by 4 is 64. Take the volume of B and divide it by the volume of A, which is 64 divided by 8, which will give you 8. So the answer is C. Question 4. Let's move to question 5. This here is a trick question. A man is paid $600 per week after a pay raise of 20%. So this is the $600 he is getting is after he got the pay raise. So that means before, prior to the raise, he was getting less than $600. So let's assume that the man's pay before was B dollars. So we don't know how much he was getting before. All we know is that he got an additional 20%. So his original pay, think of it as 100%. If he's getting 20% more, that means his new pay is 120%. So that means 120 divided by 100 multiplied by the original pay gives us the new pay of $600. But remember, we're trying to find B, the original pay, the pay before. So if we simplify this and use our transposing skills, 120 divided by 100 is 1.2. Multiplied by the B is equal to 600. Remember, we're trying to solve for B. And the 1.2 is a multiply. So when you throw across the multiply, you will get a divide. So 600 divided by 1.2 will give us 500. So the answer for this one is B. The original pay was $500. That's before the raise. Question 6. All right. They want us to find the area of the shaded region. All right. So quick things first. To find the area of a square is side by side. That's easy stuff. To find the area of a circle is pi r squared. Now let me just explain the procedure to find the shaded region. I think I prepared a graphic for this one. All right, so we're trying to find the area of the red part here. I just moved it out of the way. What we are going to do, right? We are going to minus the area of the circle from the square. So let me see if I can let me help you visualize this here. So 1 second, guys. So if we minus the two of them, we will get this shape. Remember, the shaded part is only a quarter of the remaining shape, which is blue in this case. So when we find the area of the blue part, we have to divide it by 4. So let's simplify that procedure. So that means we are going to minus the circle from the square, and the answer, we will divide it by 4. So let's see the procedure here. The area of the square minus the area of the circle. You notice I put the whole thing in brackets. So that means after we minus the entire circle and square, we divide the final answer by 4. So let's see if we understand that procedure. The area of the square is side by side, 8 by 8, so that's 64. The area of the circle is pi multiplied by the radius squared. Now you notice the radius is actually 4. Because if the distance from here to here is 8, that means from here to here is also 8. But that's the diameter. The radius is half the diameter. So the area of the circle is pi multiplied by 4 squared. And 4 squared is 16. So the area of the circle is 16 pi. Remember, we're going to take the area of the square minus the area of the circle and divide the entire answer by 4. I put this whole thing in brackets, meaning that the entire expression gets divided by 4. So that means the 64 gets divided by the 4 and the 16 pi gets divided by 4. 64 divided by 4 is 16. 16 pi divided by 4 is 4 pi. So the area of the shaded region is 16 minus 4 pi. 16 minus, or the answer for this one is B again. B is quite a popular answer today. Question 7. All right, so this one here. There's a point 3 minus 1 is reflected in the line y equals to 2. What would be the new coordinates? All right, I prepared a graphic for this one. So here we have a x and a y axis. Here's your x, obviously, and the vertical one is your y. So there's a point 3 minus 1. That's what they said. There's a point 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 is this pink dot here. All right? We are going to reflect it in the line y equals to 2. The line y equals to 2 is a special line you need to know. It's a horizontal line cutting 2 on the y-axis. What you are going to pretend to do is pretend this line is a mirror. So anything on this side of the mirror gets reflected on the other side. But how does a mirror work? If you stand 2 meters from a mirror, inside the mirror, you look like if you are 2 meters inside of the mirror also. So let's see what happens here. So pretend somebody's standing here. They're standing 1, 2, 3 units away from the mirror. So that means on the other side of the mirror, they have to be 1, 2, 3. So they will end up over here. So that means the coordinates of that point is actually not 5 minus 1. It would be, I think I made a mistake here. It will be over here. So the coordinates of this point will be 3, 5. So I made a mistake here. Let me just correct this here. It's a good thing I just didn't say, just shout out the answer. Good thing I reasoned it out. All right. So that's the coordinates of that shape there. See if it makes sense here again. Notice 1, 2, 3. This coordinate is on 3 units on this side of the mirror, and on this side it's also 1, 2, 3. So the coordinates is 3, 5. Let's see if that answer exists in the choices. 3, 5. So the answer is A. Question 8, the last question here. I prepared a graphic for this one also. What is the sine of 45? First of all, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Okay? So that's a standard formula. So let's see. Question, well, I prepared a graphic for this one also. Let's see what I have here. All right, so this here is the same question. They want to know the sine of 45? Yes. So, in this question here, it may not be obvious, but this is actually an isosceles triangle. Because if here's 45, 45 plus 90 minus from 180 will give us another 45 degrees. So that means here's 45 degrees. So this is actually an isosceles triangle. So if here's 1 unit, over here's also 1 unit. But you notice the length of the hypotenuse is missing. To find the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle, you see the two sides? I'm just going to call here A and here B, the two regular sides. The hypotenuse is A squared plus B squared. So it's 1 squared plus 1 squared. 1 squared is 1, 1 squared is 1. So you get 1 plus 1, which is 2, and you end up with the square root of 2. So the hypotenuse is actually the square root of 2. Okay? That means to find the sine of 45, let's take this 45 here. Sine is opposite, which is 1, and the hypotenuse is the square root of 2. So it's opposite divided by hypotenuse, which is 1, which is the length of the opposite side, divided by the square root of 2. And remember, this is a multiple choice exam, so you don't really have a calculator, so you leave the square root of 2 in surd form. So it's 1 divided by the square root of 2. Let's see if that answer exists. 1 divided by the square root of 2. The answer is C. All right, guys. So I only had time to prepare 8 questions today. These questions were actually sent by one of my students who had trouble with these 8 questions. So as the week, I know exam is coming up and getting really, really close, but I'm going to try my best to keep making questions every day or every other day. Whenever I have free time, I'll be making questions. All right, guys, so take care, and I hope this was helpful.